So I'll just invite you to join me in closing the eyes if that's available to you now. And we'll begin by just arriving in whatever way feels good to you. Arriving in the body, arriving in the breath, arriving in the space that you are in, both the space of your inner world and the physical space you find yourself in now. And welcoming whatever is present within and around, above and below, to be here with us now, that all is welcome to be present. And in opening this beautiful space, this conversational space today, I'll invite the sound of the singing bowl and allowing the sound to wash over and through us, supporting us in arriving even more deeply present here and now. And as you feel complete, opening the eyes, and welcome to, oh, there's my little mallet. Welcome to Spiraling Within. I am Pei-Ling Lee, and here we spiral within the present moment together. And it's such a joy to be joined by our beautiful guest today. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So, my name is Antoinette, and I am currently a new resident of SoCal. And while we are transitioning here, I am still working on House Caviar, our cannabis service company, and being a mom of two. And so, yeah, I'm quite busy just trying to figure out all these things in this new space. But I'm so happy to be here chatting with you, my longtime friend of what, like...
Almost 10 years. It's like 10 years. It's going to be 10 years.
Yeah. You graduated in 2015?
2015. 2015.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's the special part of how we connected in this lifetime. Yeah. So what was it? So my high school sophomore American Literature Honors class. And you were my teacher.
Yes, and I think it was the first year I was teaching American Lit Honors to sophomores.
Really?
Yeah. I taught it to juniors, but it was that year we switched it to the sophomore level. And yes, I absolutely remember the first day you walked into class in 604. Such a long time ago, but for sure I was like, this girl's interesting.
Well, it's funny because that was a really interesting time in my life in many senses, but I so distinctly remember, like, I finished my freshman year of high school and I had a game plan. I was like, there are some changes that are happening, and I walked into that sophomore year with a very clear shift in directive. And a lot of that, which actually I think was one of the primary areas that we first connected, was around fashion. Like, I remember at the end of my freshman year, I made a vow to myself. I was like, okay, I'm never going to wear a sweatshirt with a hoodie to school again. I'm done with this. No more just sweatshirt and jeans. I'm stepping it up. And I all through that.
That was your freshman year outfit? Okay.
It was just I think that was the style of what a lot of people were wearing at the time. It was like the North Face jacket with Ugg boots and jeans. And I was just, we're fitting in, we're blending in. And then so I just remember being like, what am I doing with my life? Like, the time is now for me to start living my best life. And the outfit that's actually coming to mind right now is I had this green blazer that I would wear sophomore year. I would wear a green forest green blazer with like a blue pattern blouse buttoned all the way top with these little gold collar things and these circle skirts, and it was a distinctive look for a 15, 16-year-old.
No, sure. No, and that's definitely why I distinctly remember, I'm not like, I don't start each year of teaching thinking like, I'm going to be friends with all these teenagers, even though it would be so much fun. But I do remember seeing you and taking note of your style. That was the first year I met you when you were a sophomore. So I didn't know that you were in the North Face type of girl in freshman year. But your style was way beyond your years. Okay.
Well, that's funny.
It was really cute. And I was like, she's interesting. And lo and behold, of course, as soon as you started writing, as soon as you started talking, I was like, all right.
Well, it's funny because that was one of the first things that I noticed about you too. And I see you in this like long pink, like a bright pink fuchsia coat, like a wool coat. And you just wore these super bright, bold colors, and you always had your lipstick going, and then you had your nails, which the nail art, that was another point that we connected on. I think that year I started my nail art Instagram. I don't know. I started a nail art Instagram account, and you encouraged me to apply for the Nordstrom fashion board. Like, it was,
it was such a good year for you.
It really was. And it was so significant for me in the sense of you being a teacher. And for me, school was that was the extent of my world for I think a lot of people growing up. It's like that's the place. And then especially for a teacher who is like an authority figure, to be recognizing something in me that I was only beginning to recognize within myself, which was really my creative expression and the vibrancy of my creative expression. And especially in like when I was 9, I dreamed of being a fashion designer, and I had a sketchbook where I drew little outfits, and it still is. Even the thought now of one of my visions is like getting to go to the Met Gala one day and designing and co-creating an outfit on theme. Like, that just sounds like so much fun.
You'd be really good at it.
Thank you. But that was one of it was really in that creative expression that I think we connect. Oh, I have a memory, because do you know I remembered? We went to China together.
We did. Yeah.
We went to China through school. On a school trip, we went to China, and on that China trip, I was braiding your hair.
Yes. Yeah.
I like did this ornate fishtail crown braid.
Loved it. No, that's what I miss about teaching. I'm no longer teaching. I sat out since 2017. But the sure shot, like, opportunity to meet new voices, new faces, and at least like 100 and 150 per year, and have, quality time, math through these academic questions and these stories. But what I loved about teaching English was the literature was really mostly, it's about human behavior and human nature. And again, universal themes that, in high school, you don't quite understand the relevance of something that was written in the 1800s. Excuse me. But I miss that. I miss the connection and the conversation that we are having right now. And I am so grateful for a teaching opportunity that allowed me so much variety in personalities and in voices and in backgrounds. And so now that I've exited the teaching space and I've connected with a lot of students that are now adults, it's been great to have this support base where, you know, because I went to MIDI as well, and it's been really cool to feel connected with, you know, 10 to 15, 20 years of students and colleagues and friends. And the creative expression is what I'm currently obsessed with right now. And I don't know if you remember, but when we were studying transcendentalism in American Lit Honors, we talked about like the type A versus the type B person. And I remember taking, you know, I survey all the students, like type A is, you know, you drive a regular kind of luxury car, you have a house, you have a job, you have your family, you do your 1 to 2 vacations, and everything was stable. And then the type B is a life led with passion, where the stability is kind of on the back burner because you're wanting to fulfill your soul versus make ends meet. And you're the one thing most students kind of recognize right away is that you're poor. You might be poor financially. you yourself, like, again, not talking about your family and the wealth that you have from your family and the people before you, but you yourself might be poor. And
which, just helpful context on this, like MIDI is the high school that we're talking about, Archbishop MIDI High School in the Bay Area. And so the population of this private Catholic high school there is a mix of backgrounds, but it is primarily, right, it's primarily kind of students from middle to upper class, like affluent families.
I mean, just leaving the Silicon Valley and coming to SoCal, yes, you're right. The context of that area and the demographic, everyone's meant to be groomed to be responsible in a way that adult life and like American life kind of expects us to or wants us to. And we all have parents that did that. So the student face in that space is like, yes, I want to mirror what I see, and I need to study, I need to focus, and you know, all those things, of course, I encourage, right? But when we take that survey and you do the poll of like, who's ready for type B life, who wants type B life, you know, there's like a few hands that go up. And I felt really weird because I was clearly type A. I was like working a steady job, and, you know, had my LV bags or whatever, right? And it was like, I felt like a fraud, encouraging students to consider type B before they just like write it off completely, you know? And so now that I've had the privilege of doing type A and finding that it offered me a stability, a knowledge, a confidence that allows me to exit the type A. And yes, I also have a husband that's really supportive. But the type B, the passion part of all of our lives, is kind of where I'm stuck on right now. And especially with my kids, I have a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old, and I'm a teacher. So it's like really hard to balance what I know with what I've seen in teaching, and then what I feel with what I know what institutions do to individuals, right? Like in 5th grade, when the state requires you to go to school, that's when you start your ABCs and your writing and your cutting.
In
right?
5th grade?
Sorry, kindergarten. When you're 5, sorry. And when you just have to go to school, right? The parents aren't allowed to keep you home anymore. So then, you know, when we have preschoolers, Michael's 4, and he's in a preschool right now where they're already sitting down and cutting and tracing, and I'm just like, why? We don't really need to be doing that. Like, he's not going to be more advanced because he's doing it earlier. You know, if you're going to have to do this for the rest of your life, you need to sit at a desk for the rest of your life until you're 18, right? Then for me, I'm just obsessed with creative expression. Like, there's the toys in my house. It's just like paper, pen, glue, scissors. You know what I mean? Make me something every day. So it's been interesting to leave that space and to get an opportunity to pursue what I'm doing now with House Caviar as a cannabis service company, and why I feel like it's perfect. It's like, it's like I'm supposed to be here doing these things because my real passion is actually teaching. And I had a huge identity crisis when I left teaching at MIDI, because my identity was around the fact that I feel fulfilled, I feel satisfied.
Yeah.
I love teaching, and it's not like just English, and I think that that's what I got stuck on when I left MIDI, was that I was a good English teacher, and now I want to teach about plant medicine, and a plant medicine that is currently undergoing still a transition in the country. And the amount of prejudice I was running into, whether it was prejudice against the cannabis, prejudice against me now because I'm pushing cannabis, those that really bothered me. It really irked my soul that, my passion for teaching wasn't visible because of whatever I was teaching about. And so it got me into a really weird space of projecting my insecurities and wanting to kind of like shove it down people's throat about, I'm an effective teacher. I graduated tons of students. I know they write better. I know they think better. And I know that maybe I was able to influence them to use their privilege in a responsible way versus a selfish way. And that was the goal of like why I ended up at a private school versus teaching at a private school versus teaching at a public school. Was I wanted to help shape students that had more resources, so that in the long run, maybe our entire world could be a little bit better, a little bit more positive, if all of us can come together behind this message of, yes, let's just think positively about what we need to do. And I know that it's hard when you have so many people telling you what you need to do, but the whole concept of like stepping into my passion that wasn't behind like a subject matter that was approved or needed or institutionalized.
Yeah.
I have zero regrets kind of jumping ship and stepping into a space that's completely unknown.
Yeah. Well, if you kind of go back to those, or now that it's been a few years now, and reflecting on that jump or that leap, and speaking about passion, so it's like teaching is your core thread, and it's whatever you're teaching about that kind of is a vessel for really your teaching. How did you kind of end up with it being plant medicine and specifically cannabis?
Oh my gosh. So it was a complete accident. And I feel so lucky to be an individual that experiences all these accidents that take on real meaning, whether I know it or not at the time. And I think that when people arrive to this place of existence where everyday happenings that are not, again, you don't control them, right? And if you forego your ego and your sense of I exercise free will every day and like my life is great because of me, if you forfeit that mentality and understand that there are larger things at play that control what type of energies like enter your life. And I know I taught at a Catholic school, but the Catholic religion I felt was really confining to individuals experiencing the universe. And because it's like, again, masked behind characters and people that you have to like worship and pray to. But I've always believed that there's just an overall energy that controls the ebb and flow of things, and to respect it is to show humility. And so when I teach, Sophocles, and we talk about Oedipus Rex, this fate and free will thing, yes, I left teaching on a whim because my husband was supposed to go to Cannabis and I was going to be a stay-at-home mom of 2 kids. And I didn't want to work and take care of 2 kids. So I asked Brian if I could stay at home that year just to handle the kids. And then he was supposed to go try and do something with the cannabis industry. And so once I made that decision to stay at home and go back to teaching a year later, I think my mind was, freed temporarily from the responsibilities of being a professional teacher, showing up wherever I walk outside in San Jose as a professional teacher. So that was the start of my accident. That was the choice that I made, right? And then, you know, in this 1 year of leave of absence existence, we moved in with Brian's sister and her husband, and the four of us are social consumers. And it was 2018, and it's newly legal in California. It's the adult use market is now available. And we had access to some flower that was not typically something people can buy. So the flower is just like higher quality.
And we could you do a little briefer on what flower is? All the types. Sure. That was one of my through you I've gotten to learn so much Cannabis 101.
Yeah, that's it. So of course. So flower, we're talking about basically a plant that grows leaves and buds. And the buds are what
cool.
we're talking about.
Is there going to be a little visual demo?
Yeah, of course. I can't teach you if I can't show you, right? So this is flower. This is bud. Okay.
And just to describe for people who are listening, it looks like a little, what's it called? Bunch of grapes. It kind of looks like a mini bunch of grapes.
And it smells like flowers. Like, it smells really good. Okay, so we were in the garage and we were smoking flower with the pre-roll, kind of like this. I can have one ready. And, you know, we were smoking it and we were like, why aren't other people smoking? We don't understand why other people aren't smoking the way that we smoke, where it's social. We smoke before we go to a show. We smoke before we eat dinner. We can be functioning adults while we're smoking. And we were just curious, like, why other people don't, right? And so I was high and I'm the teacher. And so naturally I said, oh, well, we have to teach them, right? And that was the beginning of the end. It's like, yes, that's right. We have to teach them. How do we teach new people to smoke and have a pleasant experience versus the typical pothead brownie, I'm stuck on a couch, I can't talk, right? So essentially that concept of like, how do we teach people is what started the entire thing. So first we came up with a litmus scale, and you saw the prototype.
Yeah, I really got to be a case study. I really felt like I was a case study in the beginnings of your developing this curriculum and methodology.
For sure. I mean, you had just turned 21. I mean, again, accidents, right? You just got back from London, and you just turned 21, and you were in a space of learning. And I was in a space of teaching. Right? So, exactly. Teach me, Antoinette. And the litmus scale really does help people become comfortable with something they're unfamiliar with. And the concept of like knowing what could happen to you while you consume and how heavy it gets or how long it takes is what gives people the confidence to try it, right? So the litmus scale was the first thing that we developed. And then the second thing was, okay, I need a guide to help me teach people what to expect. And then I need a space. I need a classroom where I can show people, because if you can experience it, you'll learn it the most effectively. It'll be the most meaningful. It'll be very comfortable if I could just physically stand there with you and help you consume it properly, right? So that's when we started throwing events. We had to throw these events to help people see that they can consume cannabis and still participate at a social event. So nobody really understood what it looks like, what a cannabis service looks like, because they see bongs, they see pipes, they see things that the movie and the government has been teaching us, and they don't see things like this, the hemostat.
What did you call it?
It's called a hemostat.
Hemostat. I see a really pretty golden pair of scissor-like tweezers.
Yeah, it's a science tool, right? Like, I don't know if you remember these from biology, but essentially the service is, yes, House Caviar knows what to bring and how to serve it so that it's very comfortable, right? I'm doing this so that my fingers don't smell like smoke, because if you touch the crutch and you pull, your hands smell like smoke. And of course, you know, you can wash your hands, whatever, but they have tools like that.
So right now you're holding the pre-roll with the hemostat. Is that what it's called? So you're holding the pre-roll with the hemostat, and then you just took the lighter and you lit the tip.
So you're roasting the tip like a marshmallow. So you kind of want to get it all the way around. Mm-hmm. And this will help you with airflow and avoid what it's called canoeing, where one side of the paper burns and the other side doesn't. And so then you get like an uneven burn, and then you're kind of like wasting your thought, right? So,
and so what about using, because I remember when in the events that I helped you guys as a, what was it called? Yes, consultant. We lit the wick of lit the hemp with the lighter so that it wouldn't transfer the flavor, right, of the lighter fluid. Yes. Yeah. So we use the hemp so that when you get a steady flame, and then when you inhale it, you're not inhaling butane. So when you're smoking out of a bong and you have to like light the bowl, that's a good time. When we did the events, we never let people like pull at the same time we're lighting, right? We light it and it's like smoking first and then we pull. But then I remember I wrote the curriculum on how to explain to people actually like how do you inhale without coughing. Yeah. So that was fun to teach you. Yeah. Well, I learned so much, and I was in many ways it was a perfect aligned situation, because I, you know, even going to college, I didn't drink. I mean, I still don't drink, and I still don't smoke or really consume cannabis, but I got to explore and experience and face the unknown of any kind of preconceptions or just unfamiliarity that I had with it in that summer, where it was just a line that you were beginning all of this stuff and I was in this space of openness to exploration. And it was like, to get to have someone who I trusted, to have a trusted friend who is an expert in consuming in a way that wasn't nightlife, because I'm not interested in just like, you know, being in a club or but more so just the experience for the sake of experiencing it. And I remember walking into the office that you guys had in your house and on the whiteboard seeing the litmus scale just in marker. And it was such a helpful diagram. It was so helpful and I think there were maybe even like a little emojis drawn describing what like a level 3 and 4 is like versus the catatonic 8, 9, 10 state, and knowing how you can calibrate, because really it's a journey of self-discovery, of discovering for your unique system, what is the, like, how many puffs is it? How many times do you inhale, or what is it called? Pulls? Is that the term? How many?
Yeah, pulls or draws.
How many pulls or draws do you take? Is that how you describe it?
Correct. Yeah. How many pulls or draws for how long?
And so you're just trimming.
I'm trimming the ash because I'm done and I want to save it for later. And instead of like smashing your pre-roll against the bottom of your ashtray, this is like it's just a nicer way to make it ready to light again later. So it's just like nice and clean. Yeah. I mean, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, just that I learned so many things, so many nuances of it, especially for someone who that type A, because I also was living in that type A kind of wanting to do things the right way and not the wrong way, because I believed that there was a right way to do things and But inhaling, for example, there's like a lovely rainbow arc. There's like a sun.
Oh, is there?
Yeah, there's like a light ray reflecting across your face. Yeah, something like inhaling a bit of cool air around the joint, so you're not just, it's like you don't even have to press your lips against it, because also what if you have lipstick on and you don't want to put your lips against what if you don't want to put your lips against the pre-roll, and then you have a little gap of air, and then you actually inhale it all the way into your lungs. Like actually inhaling into your lungs, it's a whole thing. If you've never, because I'd never smoked anything before, there's there can be an art to it, an art to all of these things. And it really was exciting for me to approach it as an art and a science, and really it wasn't for me at the time, but it's a spirituality as well. It's an expression of all of the interconnectedness. And it's that level of intentionality that you guys bring to it that I really resonate with.
Yeah. And I love that you said all the things. You're an example of the type of consumer we'd like to meet. One that is conscious, one that's intentional. And again, you said it perfectly. You've learned a lot, and it's great, because the concept of integrating something with your body, where you as a human being, all of us already have these endocannabinoid systems in our body, and the cannabis is just, it's like interacting with what's already inside. So you're not really adding anything foreign at all. And the whole concept of plant medicine helping individuals handle the conscious life and helping the subconscious in a way, becoming healthier as a voice and as a presence in your existence, is how I find cannabis and mushrooms to really make me the most productive, the most self-actualized, and the most present being. And I cannot tell you how much better. And just, again, I think that, most people, when they look at my life, and I know the profile of my existence, San Jose, K through 12, private Catholic high school, like I get what that looks like now to a person that doesn't know me. And everybody thinks that I'm good. And that's totally fair. I've been very blessed, and I've been very happy, and I've been very successful with the things that I've wanted to do. But the soundness of my mind and my body right now, and like, yes, no one can phase like what I have learned in my own head by letting my body and my experience like really experience the things that I was receiving, whether it was bad or good. And I've always been the type to empower and press all these females that I've known in my life to not ignore what they feel inside. And I know it's just like we're taught to just ignore it because we want to be good daughters, we want to be good students, we want to be good friends, we want to be a good wife, all these things. And I've learned that I am good at those things, but because I haven't ignored anything that I feel, and I know how to express it, right? And like that's the part that makes me worried about today's like generation or our world nowadays, is the expression part is so contorted and confused, and the power of one person to can I use perfect language on here? Or
yeah, go ahead.
It's okay. To unfuck what you like know inside your head. It's challenging, and if you're very confident with what you're doing and how you are, and you haven't tried, seeing how plant medicine can open you even more and get you deeper even more and inside you. Okay, that's one element, right? Like getting access to the inner soul. That's one element. But the second element is it has to come out in some fashion. Otherwise, it's not really real, and like that's why like the safe spaces that we all get from our parents or our friends, like they're supposed to help us only hear ourselves. They're only supposed to help us like strengthen what we want to say and how we want to feel. But I mean, as we know, everyone else is trying to like adjust it to their opinion or whatever is appropriate. And I'm not saying I know how to do all these things. I have two sons, and that I'm trying really hard not to project any of my experiences with learning, with writing, with reading, and with talking onto them. But that's why I'm an avid user of these plant medicines daily. And I don't need an occasion for it. I don't need to go camping to do shrooms. Like microdosing shrooms is something that does help you. You're more efficient and you're more productive, and it doesn't make you confused at all. And again, though, that's another space, right? The psychedelics and the stereotypes that we've seen on that 70s show where it's like all, vibey and whatnot. And yeah, it can do that and it can get there. But again, like you said, conscious and intentional use. It is something people can learn and apply. And I think that with the things that I told you, I think is the problem of today's world. It's one thing that could help. And of course it just has to be like at the right time and place, right? But for my kids, CBD as a tool, there's certain things about like pains or like irritations, like skin irritations that, if Michael has a rash and I put on any of the cream, it still takes a while to activate, like hydrocortisone or whatnot. But so yeah, they'll keep scratching. Right? So, with the CBD cream, CBD just brings everything back to homeostasis. And so that area of itchiness just becomes less inflamed and doesn't itch right away, which gives me like a window of like, okay, cool. It's like not going to itch. 15 minutes, he's going to be able to fall asleep. And that's it, So it's like an interesting thing to have learned as an adult. And then like, as I'm experimenting with it myself, I'm learning the language to explain it to other people. And then to know that like, we could be all a little different and a little bit more positive and a little bit more secure with like the stillness or the quietness. And that's something that I find I finally have achieved. And it, of course, has a lot to do with the fact that I moved out of the Silicon Valley and into a space where it's less, I don't know, we kind of said it at the beginning of this conversation, but the type, the demographic, and the culture, it's very aggressive. And it's interesting to have left it, being an aggressive person and feeling, I was pretty positive and pretty happy, definitely in San Jose. But I'm here and it feels different and it's good.
Yeah, and you touch on so many things. Well, first, mushrooms. I love mushrooms. Like when I first did mushrooms last September, and then I've done it a couple of times myself, but that first time, and I didn't take too much. I don't know what the normal size is, but maybe like a couple caps and a couple stems. And it felt like such an affirmation of everything that I was already experiencing in my daily life and my meditation. And it was just in an embodied experiential way, just in a different embodied and experiential way. And I think that that's the cool thing about plant medicine is it brings you into the body, which can be a scary prospect to drop from. And that was my whole journey after school and after graduating from college, dropping down from the analytical mind, the thinking mind, and into the feeling body, the sensing body. And plant medicine can be a beautiful tool for so many people, and already is and has been for eons of human and non-human history. And I love that you also said the word activate and brought up the endocannabinoids, of how it's this catalyst that is just activating what is already within us. And that's the case with, in my experience, everything that is outside me, even, for example, you, who I seem to be speaking to now, you're reflecting and activating what's already within me. And that level of, oh, you also said something about expression, that once we connect with that inner voice, the way that we are in physical form because we have chosen to be in physical form for a reason. There is an anchoring, a grounding, and an actualizing in physicality, whether that is verbal or creating something like art or writing something, whatever space it's in. It's that action step of we connect with that inner voice, and then it's like, okay, we've connected with these energies. Maybe like me, it's like these very high frequencies of the cosmic realms. And now what? It's not meant to just at least for me, it's not just coming in to stay within this one vessel.
Right.
That's why we're channels. Each of us are channels that are channeling through, and we're bringing through this energy, this universal energy, because that universal energy it is us. We are just intimately one with that. And it is part of our nature as each of us as creators. We are each creators inherently, and we're here bringing that through. And something like cannabis or mushrooms can activate and ignite that bringing through. And also the element of what you were just speaking to at the end of this environment. Well, for you, it sounds like the Silicon Valley, you described it as aggressive. It's been so interesting moving back here in the past few months, because it's really just supported me in anchoring in my own clarity of my energy and vibration and sense of self, because I haven't lived here since high school. And then now after all of this, spiritual remembrance and all of this inner work and integration, it's like, okay, can I be in this environment that I once associated with all these different energies of maybe external pressures or social conditioning and programming, and can I stay clear and true to who I am in essence, and my creativity and my freedom and my joy? And it's been really cool because my experience of the area has totally shifted and just mirrored that. It's like it could seem like the environment is totally the same, but because I'm the one who's shifted, it's no longer this space that amplifies pressure on me, because I have within myself done the inner work to be with and integrate those voices, because they were just reflecting what was already within me. No one was telling me to do my homework. No one was telling me to go, Pei-Ling, go this way or that way in life. Yes, there are those voices sometimes, like you have some teachers or some like parental figures in your life. Not my parents. My parents didn't really tell me to go which way. But even media, even when we encounter media or just curriculum or news, there are all these messages that we're receiving constantly about the directions to go in. And my internalization of that was within me. Like that was just reflecting, because I was already, so you talked about projecting, they were just reflecting what I was projecting, basically. that the conditioning was coming from within me, which I know because as I've reprogrammed myself, as I've reprogrammed consciously, as I've changed the makeup of my ego, essentially, as I've reprogrammed my ego, my experience of the external reality has totally shifted, because the external reality is just reflecting my internal reality, and da-da-da-da-da. And like with your move, which this is definitely something I envisioned for myself at some point in the year, and just in general, when we actually move environments too, that activates and awakens so many things. So you moving from Silicon Valley to San Diego, like I can just imagine the spaciousness and the energies that how that energy there and just being by the beach can all support you in being in your vibration, or being in that state of peace and quiet and stillness.
Yeah. I'm super excited about that because yes, I'm very aware of how, like you said, like the Silicon Valley will always be the Silicon Valley, right? And like whatever works for it will continue to work for it. And as people are born there or come there, okay, and I was born there, and to think that I've spent 38 of my years minus 6 for college, which I was in San Diego for college. I'm very much defined by that upbringing and my immigrant parents who were seeking stability. They push all of those stable jobs on me for sure, for sure. And I'm not even mad, I'm not even mad. Okay. And, the Catholic values, the Vietnamese values, like I very much know that those things worked. All those things worked for me. I'm very proud to be all those things. And to come from a place that like, yeah, being able to, my parents accidentally landing in San Jose, starting on the east side of San Jose and then moving literally wherever we needed to be so that we could be safe. And that's what they prioritized. And that also meant they chose the route of the Catholic private schools. And I recognize within my own Vietnamese community that that's most parents like didn't put their money in school. I mean, it's again expensive. So I understand that I'm successful and happy and great because of that. And like you said, like now getting to take my identity and my expression and my individuality where it's like the truest of true. And, you know, like you do have to go through and learn these things that require like productivity, self-discipline, and the study skills, right? Like school should be about learning the habits of centering your mind, focusing on reading something, thinking about what it means, and then expressing something about it, right? You have to learn how to do that. And the grades don't matter, but the process matters, right? And so learning that process and being able to hold down a responsible job where you're on time every day, those things matter. And then after that, I did all those things. And now, you know, going from a teacher life where lunch is scheduled every day, like my brain had so much space to think because I never had to think about what time I'm eating lunch and what am I eating for lunch. Who am I eating lunch with? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every day for 10 years. When I left teaching and I'm a stay-at-home mom / trying to start a brand, start a company, fight for my integrity because everybody thinks I'm a pothead dealer. So I didn't know how to eat. I had no idea how to feed my body. And it was one of those things that it took me a long time to figure out how to do that. And it's just one of the things I realized about like how much you forget that there are things you should care about, you know? And so I am having adjusted all those things in that space, you know, with those pressures, coming out alive and stronger, and then getting to move into the space of, yes, I feel very lucky, like you said, to be by the ocean and the draw of like what you can't see. You can't see the end of it. And all it is this rhythmic, that will do something to people's like mental space. And so I'm currently in a space of, I just want to help other people get there. And the self-knowledge is what I'm really good at. And when I'm growing up at 25 or 30 and everybody's like, what are you good at? I don't know, nothing except knowing myself. Okay? So nothing but knowing myself and how to advocate. But at the same time, I'm in a space of constantly wanting to listen. Because like you said, everything is a reflection of you, right? And so if I'm listening with my ego, whatever that person is saying I'm going to misinterpret that. And people don't get that they do that. Right? You can't really tell that you're doing that unless you're able to kind of like take in that ugly. Are you able to possibly say that person might be right, that tone they're using with you about whatever it is you're admitting? And for me, it's you have to do that every day. You have to listen on both sides every day. And how you can get there without being triggered or pulled into something negative or pulled into something positive and taking it completely the wrong way is the work that I want to help other people do.
Yeah.
And I think plant medicine is one of those tools that I want to use to help encourage people that there's a faster way, a cheaper way, a more rewarding way. Because as soon as you can do that, I think, you know, everything about your life just kind of trickles into this place of meaningful accidents.
Yeah, and I would call them signs and synchronicities. And also for me, they're like little divine universe winks, and they're not from an outside force in my experience. They're really from they're like gifts I've left myself, little packages and reminders that I've left myself, me as in the divine me. And I love that you also highlight listening, and where are you listening from? What are you listening from? Are you listening, like you said, with the ego? Are you listening with the thinking mind, the survival mind? Are you listening with your heart? What is it like to listen with your entire whole body? And I also think it's interesting that you say listening, because what comes up for me is in experiencing other people with awareness, for me, it's also about seeing. It's seeing through the layers of what seem to be. So if somebody is like, blah, 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 and coming, just expressing, for example, my dad, he speaks very loudly. He speaks very loudly, and he sometimes has a tone that maybe some may experience as being aggressive. But then if I can see through the layers of what seem to be and see to the part that is at the essence of what he's speaking from, and then what he's speaking from, which maybe he might be speaking from his ego mind. But then even beyond that, you can see through the ego and see the love that's there, really at the heart. And I think it's also interesting that you say listening because of your own journey with hearing, like your physical hearing. How has that evolved? How has that evolved? And also, like, because that's even an invitation to shift your listening from your physical listening to listening with your intuitive senses, your whole self.
So this conversation is really interesting. Because as a person that did not know I had a hard of hearing impairment until I was 34. And then once I understood that I couldn't hear and that there were things that I could do to hear better, like get hearing aids. Once I was able to do that and I got to slowly help people understand that I have this impairment, I was getting these reactions of like, that explains certain people's opinions about me. And it like woke me up to I thought I was emitting like my true self, my authentic self, and there's like these things that out of my own control I'm getting, written off left and right for how I look, or the fact that I might not respond to your question or you saying hello because I didn't hear you, and now I'm just this stuck up B. And I'm like, and then it's like, I get it, you know what I mean? Like I can accept that, and that's the humility in allowing people to form their own experiences and opinions based on what they can see and what they can hear, and then just letting it go, right? But yes, when I learned at 34 that I haven't been hearing clearly at all, and I haven't been hearing everything. Like I hadn't heard my blinkers in my car. I forgot they were a thing.
Wow.
As soon as I wore a test driving pair of hearing aids and I got in the car, and it's just this loud blink. I'm like, what is that? Why is it so loud? And then birds. It was like a weird. And then when I realized, I'm like, wait, I haven't heard birds. It was a little sad.
Yeah.
Yes. And then I've had a really bad vision for all my life, and I just recently got LASIK. So I'm feeling like an entirely new person.
You have all these superpowers, these heightened senses.
And so that's why it's like one of those things where, if you can ask me what I care about and what I want to teach my kids, the metaphorical explanations of listening and seeing versus like the physical ones as well. It's exactly why when we were doing seminars in English, I'm literally telling how often you guys speak to see how much are you practicing this active listening that I asked you to do at the beginning of the seminar, right? And if you're talking a bunch of times, you're not getting your perfect score because you didn't listen, right? And I'm like, and the seeing thing is like, yes, if I got really, I think I learned an intelligence after teaching all these stories about universal themes with all these students and applying it to their real lives, you know, for 10 years and like 5 sets of students every 10 years. So, I'm sorry, every year. And I learned that, yeah, I understood emotional intelligence really well because characterization in stories and how an author writes how a person said something is where I started helping you guys. Like, how do you know this character is this way, right? Like, what words? And so it helped me really understand, yes, like we are teaching emotional intelligence. It's not direct. It needs to be more direct. But if I could go back, that would be the theme of all my courses.
Well, and it's also like, even as you're saying that now, it's decoding. Like in language that I would use now, it's literally, for me, words are codes. They are one form of the infinite forms of language that energy can take. Some people really resonate with numbers. I love numbers too. But words are codes, and within each book, it's like an entire universe that is channeled. And so getting to go through and decode, and as you're connecting with a specific word that Hawthorne used in the Scarlet Letter in a specific sentence as describing the way that Hester Prynne wore or spoke something, that word, in connecting with it, it's also, you're listening and you're seeing, and you're actually connecting with your, beyond your physical senses, all of your extrasensory abilities of intuitively interpreting and connecting. And what is it like? How does that word even, how does it resonate with you? What feelings emerge? What emotions? What thoughts? What visions? And it's amazing. It's literally infinite possibilities. And just what you were saying also about your hearing, and we've talked about this before, but I just think it's so amazing that just energetically, in some ways you could look at the hearing like you not hearing all that maybe was being said to you. It's like this physical filter that you had. You had a physical filter that just like filtered out all of this information that was unnecessary for you to receive at the time. And even we've talked about how, like, even if people were saying things that might have been dissuading or would have swayed you one way or another, or maybe hurt your ego in some senses, that was just all filtered out. And so you were just showing up in your bright pink, your bright pink wool coat and just shining and like living your life. And that it's like we're protected and guided in so many ways beyond that we could even imagine. And I think a parallel that was coming up for me is just how I was in being closed to really intimate connection for 22 years in the form of like no romance. Like I had this energetic wall up that was filtering out any potential romantic connections, any male interest or affection, that was just like, stay away. And even honestly, people, it was just like, to all human people, it was like, stay away unless you somehow make it through the filter. But really it was like my sad heart on the inside was like, all I want is to be friends and to be connected and to be loved. But I was choosing to experience this boundary of protection that was not just me, but I'm sure I was guided and supported in barricading that wall. But it all was related to divine time. Like for 34 years, you didn't hear everything, but you were building your skill set. You were honestly connecting with yourself. And then it's like when you're in a space where, okay, it's almost like the light being turned on in a sense, or your hearing being turned on. And for me, it was like, okay, now the timing is aligned for me to connect with like romantically and explore my sexuality and all these things. And it was just perfect timing because I was just ready. And it wasn't just me being ready, it was the environment and the world and the people being aligned for me to connect with too. Because it's both us being ready, and then it's also the world being ready for us, and the alignment of both of those things.
Yeah. No, I'm curious. If you say you had a level of knowledge of like this wall we build, right? Like if you were younger and your parents, or mostly I think it would have to be the parents that like do this. If they help you filter out that wall, or, you know, keep it down to a certain space about certain things, but then like build it up for whatever, right? And the knowledge of how to talk about your insecurities, your flaws, or if your parents if they're also secure with their flaws and are able to help you understand why you have these things, do you think that you would have been different, or had a different experience of like maybe taking that wall down like earlier?
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing in your question and what comes up is really that, at least for me, my journey was, and it still is, and it continues to be, it's unfolded perfectly. I wouldn't go back and change the timing of it at all, because, you know, 22, I had my first kiss right before I graduated college, and then the sequence of relationships that I had were just perfect, and I got to unravel and explore and discover all those things in the timing that was aligned for me. And like you were describing the happy accidents, it was only in the time that I was ready and open that the opportunity or the tool or the resource emerged. And for me, it wasn't really, you know, my parents definitely support me and planted seeds, but it was like mainly after college, or, you know, I don't know where I was going with that tangent, but what's really coming up is in the question of, okay, how would I, say I had kids right now, how would I as a parent support children with what I have experienced? And I think it's quite simple. It's the unconditional love and acceptance. And I think it's the permission to have the walls, even, because I think there was a lot of me for years. I was like, oh, I shouldn't be shy, or I shouldn't be frowning all the time, or I shouldn't be so serious, or I should be coming off a different way. Like basically that I should be different, and that the way that I was showing up in a certain space, or the way that I was showing up in the world, or maybe in a classroom, maybe I was too strong or fierce in a classroom, and that intimidated. The number of times I heard the feedback about how these walls that I had were intimidating to others, and then it's like, oh no, is there something wrong with me? Or even moments where my mom would lovingly ask, like, oh, have any boys been chasing you? And, you know, that's a reflection not of her, but just of the general programming of what is expected of social dynamics. And how bad I felt that no boys had been chasing me. And so it's in that self-discovery, it's holding that space for letting it, just supporting that it's really just supporting the self-discovery. Because the thing is, kids, no matter what age, babies, infants already have their inner guide. They already have this infinite wisdom that is already within, and everything else is just activating that, especially the kids that are kids now, and those that are going to continue to be kids in the years coming, is they're already coming in. They're super advanced. And I mean advanced spiritually, and advanced in terms of remembering the truth and the essence of what is. And so even as I've remembered these past few years, when I think back to school, and I loved what you said about tracking active listening, and really seeing, are you listening, and then are you expressing, and that mechanism, because it is a mechanism. And none of it really was learning for me. Like in terms of the content, I felt like nothing I've really learned was learned in the sense of it being new or foreign. It was a reminder of knowledge that was already within. And it's like, oh yeah, remember this is a thing. But there is an adaptation or an integration of being human. And I think that's where school really offers the opportunity, and teachers of what is it to be in this human physical form? Because especially like you see even kids on the spectrum or who are labeled with different things, it's like, it's quite a thing to be in a human physical body, and every physical body is a different system. And so what is it like to notice the sensations that are present? Or even if it's like, I had so many friendship struggles growing up in elementary school, and if I were my little self presenting, oh, these kids don't want to be friends with me, or it seems like I don't have friends, or I just want my best friend, or whatever the situation seems to be, it's like creating, just being that unconditional love that embraces and accepts what is, like accepting the child and celebrating the child for even being aware of anything. Like to even be aware of anything is like such a major, wonderful thing. And I think within the inner guidance, children know when there's like, I remember there were situations in my life that I wanted to change or evolve. And it's like, okay, what are the resources that would help me in doing that? Presently now, I would be much more energetically and spiritually and emotionally focused and also somatically focused, rather than continuing to live only in the mind. So I guess it would just be a more holistic, it's kind of like holding this holistic hug. That's what it would be. And it's like just the reminder that you are loved and you are hugged and you belong and you are connected regardless of anything. And the thing is, ultimately, at the end of the day, you know, my mom was holding that hug. I knew my dad was always loving me. And so I'm grateful that my parents definitely held that hug. And yet I still had the perfect journey for me, because to a certain extent, you know, parents and children, it's not a power over power under authority situation. It's like we're all equal beings here. And the child has like each being has their own individual journey, regardless. It's like you can be holding a hug and they can say no.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's perfect too.
No, I mean, that's great. Of course, I told myself that I want to be a better listener. And so I know I'm the one with 2 kids, but I really love the reminder of what you think is important. And yes, unconditional love and acceptance obviously are what help people feel safe. And I've been very privileged to have that space, kind of like you said, that protection that is divine, you know, and the things that you don't know that, you know, yeah, it's probably doing you a favor, Antoinette, that you can't hear what everybody has to say. You know? Yeah. And so which is why presently I am just in a space of gratitude and wanting to impact. Yeah. So.
Well, just zooming back to this present moment, which we really haven't left, but the impact with House Caviar and kind of what is currently swirling around in that space for you.
So currently I'm trying to build the right website for all the things that explain, you know, we've done a lot of work, and as a cannabis company, in 4 years now that we've been doing this, it's not a simple thing. You know, I'm not a product brand. And if you are, there's all these channels and red tape and gates that you have to go through. So for us, we have the privilege to kind of look and like try some things out. Like, what do we see and what are we doing? And so now that I, you know, aggressively went in there, 2 years of ferocious events and networking. And yeah, that was the time where we got to learn a lot of things together. I love that we have that memory of going to the Cannabis Club and sitting in the lounge, and it's like we're not at a bar, we're not at a club, but we are just in this space that's made for this. Sorry, one second.
My hearing aids. So we were in this cannabis lounge, and it was a very adult kind of after hours type of experience. But that was one of the things that I tried to do at the beginning, was like, what's the scene like? What is the cannabis landscape looking like? And it was aggressive. And now 2 years later, I'm getting the opportunity to really focus on thing I know this industry is missing, as well as where I want to make impact with helping people learn something that will help them get that empathy and that self-awareness just a little bit faster. And there's so many things in the way. And so I am just really ambitious and excited to see if I can make a dent in a quicker, more efficient, more meaningful, more connected way that helps people really understand why it should be something we can all integrate.
Yeah.
And through a service that normalizes cannabis, where, 10 years from now, when everything is legalized, everybody has normalized it, and you're throwing an event in your backyard or at that restaurant, that, you need someone to serve cannabis, to take care of how much, what kind, and to pass it out safely. Yeah, that's us. House Caviar.
Yeah. Well, and I love that also your guys' journey, it speaks to evolution. Again, it speaks to the evolution that even just one organization, one company can go through in months and also years. And so would you say that you guys kind of started out, and you guys have tried many things along the way, and then now you're honing in on what it is?
Yes.
And so what is that one thing? Did you already say it?
Yeah. Oh, kind of. Yes. That one thing is being a cannabis service for private events. And that's where I have to, that's where I'm starting. And that's what I'm gonna say. That is exactly that's the best for my landscape right now. And like you said, evolution is a possibility with this industry for sure. And the way that we want to build our ecosystem. Yes, we're gonna start very focused. If you're having an event, 25, 100, 200, and you want to consider serving cannabis beverages or cannabis edibles or cannabis flower versus alcohol, okay, House Caviar can handle those things, and very well. So
yeah, and you guys bring the consultants and all the expertise.
Correct. I mean, that's where the differentiator for us is. Not that I've seen other cannabis service companies in this industry doing it the way that we are, but the consultants are what will help people. It's like it is the medium that is necessary for this part of teaching the cannabis part that helps that person melt their prejudice. It's talking to a real person that's not to tell. I'm not trying to sell you a product. I'm not. And I'm just here to help you find, how do I get to level 2? How do I get 3, right? And these levels on our litmus scale, just like this balance, this head change, and that's all. And if that person at that event, say you're going to a wedding, and your bride and groom loves you so much that they've hired House Caviar to serve cannabis, and you've never used cannabis before, and it's a wedding. And now there's this company here that has this product that you can try, and for the rest of the evening, you'll get access to it, and now you'll have a wedding experience that, you'll be able to wake up the next morning and not get hungover or something like that. And then it's just like, whoa, what happened last night? I remember everything, and how do I get that?
And getting the experience of being a consultant for you guys for a few events a few years ago.
In Beverly Hills.
Yes, in Beverly Hills. Well, it really was, because, I'm also a communicator, and I love teaching regardless of the vessel. And really, I enjoy teaching from my personal experience. So getting to journey through that de facto case study with you and to really embody the experience, I was speaking from that when I got to encounter. And I loved the people who maybe were a bit hesitant, or this was their first time trying cannabis, or just being open to the potential, and getting to really debunk things. It's like getting to debunk and witness the reprogramming of this thing within their consciousness, really by their choice. It's not like we're going in and doing things. It's their openness to different perspectives. And the also beautiful thing about the era that we are in now and are continuing to grow in just collectively and on the earth is that it gets to be collaborative rather than competitive. And I don't know what the cannabis industry or state is like now, but at least just in my experience of reality, the great thing is that even if there are other cannabis service, like cannabis is that phrase that you said, cannabis servicing companies for private events. Yeah, they're not all you. Like each one has a distinct flavor and frequency energetically and as a brand, and the parties that you guys are gonna service might not be the same parties that another one services. And the great news is there's plenty of room for everyone. There's plenty of room for if your heart inspires you to go down the path of plant medicine, or literally any path, or like me, singing and songwriting now. How many bajillions of singers and songwriters have ever existed, but not my unique voice and not your unique energy and presence and leadership in that space as well. And that's so great.
Thank you. Thank you. I feel very fortunate, again, over and over. And like you said, the space is so new that the collaborative efforts and the collaborative abilities of all these things that everybody knows and that we're putting together is, it's a social movement to maybe make some evolution changes in directions that we should be going, you know? And so,
yeah. Well, this is actually just circling back to something we spoke about earlier that I pinned in my awareness. You mentioned the unknown and the shift from type A into the unknown. What supports you in the unknown? What's like, because I'm the same. We're living in the unknown. And I think in many ways the pandemic kind of leveled that for many people, of this reset of reminding us that really we're actually always in this state of infinite possibilities and unknown.
Okay, I'm going to tell you, it's going to feel silly because we've been talking about this whole time.
Yeah.
But the thing that helps me with the unknown of, I do feel something about not having a steady income as other 38, mother of two, new house, like these things, right? I do feel something. And in the entire process of feeling the judgment and feeling the distaste of like having to stand next to me or having to be connected to me, and like literally seeing it, hearing it with the new sense of vision.
Yeah.
And the only thing that helps you with the unknown of like the future, of course, is your self-knowledge. That's it. Like, how well do you know yourself? How well are you confident with the choices you've made, with the teams that you've built, with the village that you've connected, and in your ability to show them appreciation and gratitude constantly, so that when you do need something, or when your unknown turns a little scary, then tapping in, right? And it's just knowing yourself. And again, the MIDI curriculum is a part of how I got all the opportunities to really explore and to really shave off. Nope, I don't want to do that. Nope, I don't want to do that. Okay, cool, I like that. And that's the human opportunity, like you said, to really practice and apply what you think you know and what you think you can say, right? And all. You
mean the curriculum in terms of the books? Like, as you read different books or characters, that's how you were like, no, not that, not that?
Not when I was a high school student, unfortunately.
But as a teacher, yeah.
Yeah, correct. And that's the thing, like you said, depending on the timing and what you're open to. And again, if I was the teacher that knew as I was teaching it as an adult, that had I really understood the truthness of like this one simple line, be yourself. or the one simple concept of simplify. Okay?
Yeah.
Then I would have, I felt I would have had avoided so much drama, social drama, girl drama, men drama, if I had just listened to those things and knew myself, right? But again, like you said, we all have to try different things out, and how you like figure out when you make a misstep or you feel something negative because of a decision you made. It's like going back to like inward and that self-knowledge of like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
How was that?
Yeah. Yeah, and I love that you say that you do feel those things. Like you feel the sensation, the energy of the judgment, because you know, I'm the same. It's like on paper, what is my job? Question mark. Like I'm 25, I'm like do. And I don't even have to fill in the blank. You can fill in the blank yourself. But there can be those floating thoughts of what am I doing with my life, or when is gonna happen, or and it's about, because we get to be aware, because that's part of the self-knowledge. It's being aware of what is the truth of you and what isn't the truth of you, and what is other people's voices, other people's energies, and what is you, and that turning inwards. That's just it. It makes it, and then it's like the stronger that we are, or the more clear that we are in our connection to ourselves, our truest essence selves, as well as all the different parts that are part of ourselves. It's like the quicker it becomes to encounter something and be like, oh yeah, that's not true. I know that's not true for me. And also that those energies can be there, that judgment or that doubt or whatever it is. And ultimately, it's like what you're talking about of expression. What are you choosing to express? What are you choosing? How are you choosing to show up? What actions are you taking? Because that's where the rubber hits the road. It's those energies, all these, you know, voices can be present, but ultimately, what are you choosing? That you choose up to show up anyway, and to speak anyway, and to embody your freedom anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And that, I mean, you keep literally saying all these books that come to mind, and what you said right now about embodying and choosing. I don't know. Do you remember Grendel?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I loved Grendel. I loved Grendel. Yeah.
Yeah, that last chapter where Beowulf is smashing Grendel's head into the floor. It's like, do you feel this? You know what I mean? And yeah, it's just like, and Grendel's in this state of, you know, like, no, it's meaningless. And it's just like, well, you just have to give it meaning, literally. Like, that's it. Like,
yeah.
And if it doesn't fit with everybody else, like, who cares, right? And so it's just a hard thing to do, though. It really is. Like, and that book is a great vehicle to explain, like, how difficult that concept of like choosing purpose. Like, don't wait for someone to give, and I think that's the misunderstanding.
Waiting for permission, like, yeah.
Or like, again, needing to be a daughter to have purpose, or needing to be a wife to have purpose. Like, you know, labels, right? And so the concept of like choosing purpose and then making purpose, it's hard. And yet, everybody's situation and circumstances are so different, and you know, getting to that realization or that understanding wherever you live, wherever on this planet you are, and whatever upbringing you have, where it's just like, I do, no matter what happens, I do still have choice. I still have a choice, even if that means I can't drive there, but I have to walk, whatever. You still have a choice.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I just have this moment of, it's so cool how those characters they're like part of your spirit team. They're part of these guides. Yeah, because they're fully fleshed out beings that get to be these resources that emerge within your awareness. And yeah, absolutely. And books are the same way. And it's like, in your years, you had 10 years of teaching, right? Mm-hmm. In your 10 years of teaching, getting to be in training an intimate conversation with these characters, you were like creating talk about a village. Like that was there were these deep relationships with, and through those relationships, you were deepening your self-knowledge and self-awareness and understanding. And then it's been so cool that since you've left teaching, at least from my perspective, to witness your evolution in actually not just talking the talk, not just talking the talk to your students, but you're walking the walk. You're fully living all of these things that part of you, it's like you could recognize and see that some part of your soul was like, yeah, that is it. And then now it's not like it's out there. You're like, oh yeah, this is, you're like, this is it. Yeah, you're like, this is it. And even just like the parallel as well, because I've gotten to have a similar, you know, in very different ways, but that shift of,
I like to call it arriving.
Ooh,
right.
I love arriving. Yes, it is. And we're constantly arriving and arriving. And the thing is, we have arrived. There's nowhere to go. It's right here.
It's a constant. And that's a challenge, right? So the constant is that it's not, there's no end. And unfortunately, that's the beauty of human existence, right? Nothing about it really does make sense, to be honest. And unfortunately, it's our job and like our gift to make meaning in the things that don't make sense. And that's it. And yes, there are, like, again, if you're born into a certain family, again, we study these things too, right? Like these basic needs that have to be met, and how the unfortunate or the less fortunate are not given those things. But we're talking to a space of, we could help everybody arrive at an internal space of arriving, no matter what, by pure expressing, right? Like these conversations, the conversations we all have with each other. And so, yeah, I'm excited to have arrived in a space that feels very right for what I'm doing. And I love that, you know, you can affirm the evolution. And you're right. I constantly, as I was making these changes, thinking about all the conversations, all the intimate conversations with the characters, yes, the authors, yes, but with the students, right? Like the live people that I am like influencing or not, but engaging with. Anything you guys shared out of your mouth was a gift. And I definitely always felt it like that, and which is why I respected whether you chose to share or not. It didn't matter. I know that I brought on this energy that was like, you don't really have to do anything in this class. Like, it's on you. Yeah. I'm going to put out some energy. Okay. I'm going to put out some things. Yeah. It's on you if you want to engage, and I respect you if you don't. And so I'm hoping to get an opportunity to be that impactful with that large of an audience in my existence at some point in a new way, because traditionally speaking, that was the place and the space that I thought that I could be the most influential and make impact. And now that it's not confined to a classroom of 4 walls, and it's not confined to my physical presence being in any one place in any one time. No, I'm just hoping I make my ancestors proud. I make my dad proud of, again, I'm really happy and I feel safe and I feel supported and I just want to help, right? And so hopefully that happens, and hopefully Gabriel and Michael, you know, when their friends start asking them, what does your mom do? And I've gotten those questions. Like my Gabriel's asking me, it's like, Mom, when are you getting a job?
Yeah.
Are you going to go to work? And it's just like, yeah, what do I say? This is interesting. But yeah, they know that Mommy's a consultant and I host events, and that flower is something that we teach about. And they've seen our photos in magazines, and they've seen the flower on the counter and in the books too. And so normalizing it is, my responsibility, and making sure that everyone has the right information so that they can make their own choices.
Well, even what you were saying about labeling, right? Being a consultant, that's ultimately still, that's a label. And it's like, what do you do? Even that question, I see it evolving as we continue to evolve collectively. It's like, who are you being from? And you are being from the truth of your soul. And the truth is that your ancestors are already proud. And in that lineage, and my ancestors are proud, and it's not just the ancestors of our past, it's those that are coming, Gabriel and Michael and all of the lineages that are coming, and they're part of that team that is supporting us. And just one note before we kind of close out and transition to this last part about what you said of making sense of how this kind of world doesn't make sense. It's interesting because we've been talking a lot about senses in this conversation, and it's almost like there's nothing to make sense of because sense is already there. And so you talked about arriving and expressing, and the other component that feels really embodied for me is simply experiencing it. It's like the senses, all of our senses, all of us have these psychic, telepathic, intuitive, extrasensory, and very physical senses. And it's all there for us to kind of experience through and within if we choose to, if we feel called to and inspired to. And so it's like, oh, what do I do? You know, I just am. That's it. I am. I arrive, I experience, I express, I enjoy. These to me, and talk about meaning, at least for me, and what I value, that is far more, it's more valuable to me how I do something than what it is that I actually do. It's the energy that I'm coming from rather than the destination that I'm necessarily trying to go to. And yeah, it's cool that we get to be living embodiments of that. And yeah. And so with that, as we just kind of close out and I open and really hand it over to you, is there anything that you feel inspired to share, or speaking to those listening or watching directly and me? Yeah, any final takeaways or guidance or anything?
Yeah, I think I want to end on just some final thoughts about how to find that inner peace or that self-knowledge, or but as an adolescent, if I could go back there, having, you know, lived a kind of sheltered, protected adolescent life, and then doing this new thing where I'm pursuing this passion, all the mechanisms that the adults around us or the adults around you guys have, their knowledge and their wisdom of having experiences and now forming their own opinions about things to then share. And in school, with all the assignments and the projects and all that, and to tie into what you said, it is about how you do it and not what you do, right? And in terms of like, how do I find out how do I do it? It is just, well, you just have to have that confidence and that bravery to try, like whatever it is, however it is just like, just try it. And you're right, experience is the best teacher. And so if you're at school and you don't think any of those things matter, then you're not really experiencing it, right? You're just not doing it. And that's where you find out later that like you missed learning something. There are time is the only thing that you can't control. Is you don't have that. We can't win on that. And I know that like technically it continues and it's circular, but the physical existence for your human body right now, time is the control. Okay, and you can't. That's something you can't touch. So I think that there are appropriate times where you're supposed to allow yourself to experience certain things, and whether they're positive or negative, that there is this window that if you're not brave enough to explore this right now, you might miss something later, right? And so that bravery of just always being open is what I'm encouraging. And I think that that's really hard because the concept of being open makes you vulnerable. And we all know how people, want to shy away from that. And so the concept of just knowing that you can lean on certain things like your zodiac sign for just a small thing, right? Or your numerology, all these things that you can't see, but there's like an element of your personality, just reading into those. And again, that's kind of how I've started to learn my self-knowledge in a like a superficial space. But I was one of those people that read my zodiac as a Gemini, and when I did this myself and learned it a certain way and then brought it into the classroom as an activity, it was really interesting to see teenagers say, oh, that's like there's nothing about this that's true, because not everything is like this. There's like a lot of resistance to the descriptions or the descriptors of what is you, whether you're born at the beginning of a Pisces season or at the end, and for me, it's just like, well, what? You don't think any of those things are true? Like, it doesn't have to all be true, And so being open to the activities, the questions, the conversations, and to just absorb and be curious that's it. Okay, so if that was kind of confusing and kind of roundabout about how to be brave, I think being curious is where I land. Like, you can still explore and experience and avoid certain dangers and negativity by being curious. And I think that curiosity is squashed too soon. My Michael, his curiosity is being squashed because he's being asked to sit down and cut every day. And that's what I mean. I'm like, there's an appropriate time to do all certain things, and the thing that kind of should travel through even to 80 to 90. And that's what I kind of learned as this midlife right here. I'm about to be 40.
Yeah.
Is that the curiosity gets harder to retain as you add those years to your life. That's just a logical thing, right? So for me, I'm really kind of putting those things at the front of my consciousness, is to stay curious, because yes, it's very comfortable right now.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that phrase beginner's mind. And I love all that you shared. How do you personally identify, or even when you're talking to Michael and Gabriel, or just experiencing them being these brand new children in this brand new world, how do you identify curiosity? Like the thing, because you're right. Yeah, in yourself, or just whoever's listening, because the being brave, not all things we're actually called to be brave about. Like, not all things are for us. For me, I know I have really no inkling or desire to climb Mount Everest. That is not an area of my bravery to be expressed. But am I feeling something about going to an open mic and singing my songs and performing my songs? Yeah. And does that awaken stuff? Yeah. So how about you? How would you just describe that? It's like, how do you identify or recognize the curiosity that is for you to lean into?
Well, I think that it requires modeling, but it's just asking questions. Like, if I can ask them a question about, like, if they say, "Mom, do you like this?" If I could just lead with a question instead of answering the question, no, I don't like it. It's just like, I'm showing you that I'm being curious about what you think. And in teaching them, like, sometimes I'll pick up Michael and then, Michael, aren't you going to ask me about how my day was? Like, encouraging them to ask questions.
Yeah.
And like you said, you don't have to do anything, but the element of just like, don't close out, don't like disregard it right away just because you heard from somebody, or you experienced it one time, like, try it again. I don't know how many times I tried to drink alcohol because everybody thought that I should, and that of course they wanted to participate, even though it kind of, I don't know, looked questionable. But the number of times that I tried and had those negative experiences around the safe protectors, and I tried.
So I think, what is one question that you could leave us with, just to continue inquiring within ourselves, or just reflecting on? Maybe it's a question you ask yourself.
Yeah. How are you feeling today?
How are you feeling today? How am I feeling today? Oh, I love that.
Yeah. And it's taken me a long time to come to this space. And I feel like I was always the person before in my aggressive, more shadow, toxic space. I was always dumping. I was full of energy that was confused and knotted, and I hadn't compartmentalized, and I just dumped it out. Right. And I didn't even wait for people to ask me, how are you feeling? You know? And then it's like, but again, that's the process. That's the process, right? I had people like you who were so gracious with like, oh, go ahead. Tell me what you need to say, you know? But then I knew those things about myself. I knew that for me to process these things, that I have to keep saying it and saying it and saying it until I'm hearing myself, the tendency or the tone or the pace, like, I had to do it. So I just got lucky that, I had a group of people that weren't going to judge that side of me and give me the space so that I could recalibrate, readjust, try it again.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. What a wonderful, so many great nuggets throughout this entire conversation. It's been so fun catching up with you in this space. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you. It's been great to spiral with you.
Yes. And thank you to everyone watching and listening. How are you feeling? We'll leave it at that.